Good morning, Freedom Middle School. This is Mr. Swartz. Today we're going to be talking about the executive branch, specifically the cabinet and all the departments that work for the president. So let's move along. So first off, let's check what you know. Who is the leader of the executive branch? If you guessed the president, you would be right. But who else is in there? Well, there's also the vice president and the cabinet, and all the people who work under the cabinet leaders in the departments. So what is that cabinet though? It's not a piece of furniture. Let's find out what it is. The cabinet are the people who give advice to the president. They each have a specialty that they would talk to him about, like maybe education or the military. And then besides giving him advice, they also lead different departments that carry out that specific work. So if you're taking notes in your notebook or on a piece of paper, here's what you want to do for your notes. You want to set it up, kind of looks like Cornell notes, but on the narrower section, you're going to have the name of the department and the leader or secretary of that department. And then in the wider section, you're going to be writing out their responsibilities, or what does that department do. So here'd be what a filled out section would look like. As we're going along, you'd have the name of the department, the State Department, the name of its leader or secretary, John Kerry. And then in the wider part, you would talk about what their responsibilities are. So let's take a look at our first department. So first off, we have the Department of State. Their job is to carry out foreign policy. It's basically to represent the United States to other countries around the world. So their leaders and the people who work in them would go to different countries, talk to those people, try to make deals with them, make peace, work together with other countries. And the current leader is John Kerry. He's the current Secretary of State. So if we go back to those notes, that's why your notes look like this now. You'd have the State Department, John Kerry is the leader, and then here's what they do. Next, you can make a line under what you just wrote, because we're going to start with another department, and so just make a line between each department to keep them separated. So we're going to move on from Secretary of State, right? Should look like this now. And let's take a look at what's next. The Department of the Treasury. What do they do? You could probably figure it out from the name. Treasury has to do with treasure or money. So here are a few big things they do. They collect federal taxes. So in these next few months, your parents are going to be paying their taxes for the year. That's going to the IRS, which is part of the Department of Treasury. They also make the money. They print the money, they make the coins, basically from start to finish, from the money being made to when a lot of it comes back to the government through taxes. The Department of Treasury is under that. Their secretary is named Jacob Lew. Next up, the Department of Defense. Their job is to defend the nation. So they're in charge of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force. And their Secretary of Defense, is a man named Chuck Hagel. Next, we have the Department of Agriculture. They do a lot of things. Some of it involves farms. Some of it involves the things that come out of farms that we eat. So they help farmers. They provide money and assistance to farmers. They run the food stamp program as well as the school lunch program. So those lunches you eat at our school are being supervised or in some way supported by the Department of Agriculture. And they also do inspections on the food and on the animals and on the plants that are on farms to make sure they're safe for us to eat. And that secretary is Thomas J. Vilsack. Department of Interior. What is that all about? Well, their main responsibility is for taking care of land, taking care of nature. So they manage the national parks and other land that's owned by the government. And mainly within that land, they protect the fish, the wildlife, the water, the plants, keep them clean and healthy, and make it a place that all Americans can enjoy. The current Secretary of Interior is named Sally Jewell. Department of Justice. This is the one department where its leader is not called a secretary. It's actually called an attorney general. Our attorney general right now is Eric Holder. And here's what they do. They pretty much are involved in lots of things involving the laws and the criminal justice system. So they investigate and prosecute violations of federal laws. They run the FBI, and they are also the lawyers for the government. So in cases where the government is being sued, or they are or possibly suing someone else or taking legal action against a company or a person, the Justice Department would represent them. So they will end up working as lawyers in different federal courts, in the Supreme Court, and also, like we said, the FBI. Next up, the Department of Commerce. Commerce means business. So they are trying to help our businesses, help our economy be as best as it can be. So they're going to provide assistance to American businesses. They also do something called the census. That's where people go around the country, count up every person in the country, find out important information about them, like their gender, race, financial situation, to help the government know better how to help the people around the country. They also are in charge of patents and trademarks. That's where if you invent something, if you create something, you can patent that or trademark it or copyright it so that you're able to make money off of the thing you came up with and not someone else stealing it from you. And the leader of that is named Penny Pritzker, the Secretary of Commerce. Next, the Department of Health and Human Services. They do a lot of important things. They run the Medicare program, which provides medical assistance for a lot of people around the country. They run the Food and Drug Administration, who are in charge of investigating and making sure that food and medicine is safe for people. They also run the Public Health Service, another way to give people health care and prevent diseases. Next up, the Department of Education. They help out public education programs around the country. And they try to do research and find ways to make our education better and help students learn, help teachers do what they need to do. And that is supervised by the Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. Finally, we've got to think just a few more. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Their main job is to try to make sure that people in our country have a place to live. So they're trying to help provide housing for citizens who maybe otherwise would have trouble affording a place to live. And the Director of Housing and Urban Development is Sean L.S. Donovan. Department of Transportation. Pretty straightforward. They're trying to make it possible to get around our country safely and quickly in order to help our economy, to help people go where they need to go. So they maintain the highways across the country, and they also make safety rules, right? Requirements like all cars should have seat belts and airbags, and that when you're on an airplane, there's all those safety features like that slide you got to go down, or the mask you put on your face, the oxygen mask. All that stuff is going to be under the Department of Transportation. Department of Energy. Energy is important stuff. All the ways we get power, right? So our electricity, our oil, all the different ways you see here that you can get electricity, like wind and water, and all those different ways we're trying to get energy to get the power that we need. And the Secretary of Energy is Ernest Moniz. Department of Veteran Affairs. Their job is to help the veterans, basically people who have served our country in the military, and try to give them medical, educational, and financial help as those people come back to life outside of the military. And a lot of times they need a lot of medical or other kinds of help. And that is directed by the Secretary of Veterans Affairs, Eric Shinseki. And the last one, the newest department, which was created after the 9/11 attacks, is the Department of Homeland Security. They run the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. Those are the people at airports who you see, taking you through the X-ray machines and the metal detectors. They're also in charge of the Secret Service to protect the president. They also protect our borders. through the U.S. Coast Guard, protecting our coasts, and the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service, and the U.S. Border Patrol. Their job is to protect our country, to keep it safe from dangerous things coming into our country. So that is all the departments. To practice that or follow up on that, we are going to be working on a project this week. In this project, you're going to pick one of these departments. So you don't have to talk about all of them, just pick one. So like Department of Education or Department of Transportation. And you're going to make a poster. This could be a big poster or it could be a smaller one. It has to be at least the size of a standard piece of paper. And your job is a recruitment poster, trying to get people to work for that department, showing why the work they do there is so important. So here are the basic requirements. You have to have the name of your department pretty clearly. So just say, Department of Energy, Department of Homeland Security. You have to have a clear title. You have to explain what that department does. So give us an idea of the basic work or responsibilities they do. Then you want to show why people should work there. Why is their work important? And explain why someone would want to go there and contribute to that work. And finally, it has to include some sort of images that show what the work is or what they're doing there. That could be something you draw by hand, it could be something you print out and glue on. But the basic idea is encouraging people to see why it's so important to do this great work for the government. Thanks, that's all we have for today. See you tomorrow in school.